Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our November City of New Ulm Park and Rec Commission meeting. Appreciate everyone in attendance this afternoon. I think we all know each other, so welcome back, everyone. Order of business item number 2 was to approve our November 9th agenda. Again, I hope everyone had the opportunity to review the packet that was emailed out. Any other agenda additions or changes for today's meeting? And I would look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the November 9th agenda. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, amend or approve, I guess, the October 12th, 2015 meeting minutes. So hopefully, again, everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the past meeting. Any discussion or changes recommended to the meeting minutes from our October time?
I move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve our meeting minutes from the October 12th meeting. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4, review the October department activity reports. Again, those were included in our packet. Hopefully everybody had a chance to review recap of programming and utilization of our facilities and services and a few of the other updates. Any discussion today on the department activity reports? Okay, those will be filed with our meeting packet today. Item number 5, City Council meeting recap. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. As usual, there's been 2 City Council meetings since our last Commission meeting. October 20th saw the regular City Council meeting receive and file the newly completed Safe Routes to School plan. They also accepted the donations that you recommended they accept, and they appointed Kathleen Sullivan as the CAST, Community and Seniors Together, representative to the Renew Local Option Sales Tax Committee. And then the November 3rd regular City Council meeting, they took action on the Reinvest New Ulm Renew Committee, moving towards a potential referendum at the general election in early November of 2016, authorizing staff and the committee to move forward with planning in that direction. They also had the first reading of the liquor ordinance change at the Civic Center, which would accommodate the junior hockey franchise's request and others that have requested. They also had the first reading of an ordinance designating the Armory as a local heritage preservation landmark. Also, the first reading of the 2016 fee ordinance change took place at that November 3rd City Council meeting. That was it for Park and Rec action or information at the 2 City Council meetings.
Okay, any questions or discussion on the City Council meeting recap? Hearing none, we'll move into old business. Item number 6, and we'll rename this one. It was still as our local option sales tax update. We renamed the committee from the Loss Committee to the Renew Committee, Reinvesting New Ulm. We've had several meetings over the last couple months. The most recent was, I believe, last Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Yeah, last Tuesday we had a meeting with Representative Paul Torkelson and Senator Gary Dames were in attendance. And we talked about the legislative process that we would need to undertake for approval of such referendum, and had just a good dialogue about the types of projects and what we could be doing to work on gaining their support as we would have some proposal make its way through St. Paul. So I believe that was a good session. We also approved a timeline to hopefully meet the November 2016 general election if the City Council proceeds with recommending projects. And basically I'll summarize it this way. By the end of January, we're going to be requesting a short form proposal, or think of it as a letter of intent for project proposals. And by the end of March, looking for full proposals on projects. Again, that doesn't require to have every detail of a proposed project, but enough to be able to have our committee be able to review the proposed project and to be able to make some sort of decision toward prioritization of whether we'd like to move that project forward in the process and ultimately recommend to the city council consideration for using funding from a potential reauthorization of the sales tax. So as that connects back or relates back to our commission here, I think discussion at least I would like to have is just with Director Schmitz and Assistant Director Corman, just, kind of our timeline. Now that that's been set, we've been kind of waiting to see if there would ultimately be support from the Renew Committee and the City Council on a November 2016, and that support has been extended, I guess, in the next 90 days and in the next 150 or 180 days to a full proposal. And what type of time commitment will we need to make to kind of continue our work that we started at the last work session around reviewing potential projects from the Park and Rec division or department. Because ultimately, I think we're going to need to be able to, again, get the letter of intent for our proposed projects and a full proposal ready by the deadlines and work through this committee, this commission, with our support of those proposals. So it will come quickly, so I think I'd just turn it over to Director Schmitz on any more comments or suggestions around how we could schedule work sessions in the future. If we have to get into kind of a pace or a schedule of every other week repetition to get through the information that you're looking for from the commission to get to formal recommendations.
Yes, Chair Fryer and Commissioners, I think we've been talking for a number of months and actually a few years about this potential in a variety of different projects. So I think we're a little bit ahead of the 8 ball as opposed to maybe some of the other groups in town or other individuals or organizations. But having said that, it's certainly going to come down to a short turnaround for these next few months. And I would recommend that we have a work session before Thanksgiving here in the next week or two. And then I would suggest another one before Christmas, knowing that our first deadline is simply the letter of intent in the short form that I feel we're relatively prepared for, but we do have a few T's to cross and I's to dot, and of course a decision by the commission as to what specific projects out of our long list of ideas, we're not going to put forward all of those projects, I don't think, and so we certainly will need to pare it down to a few of the most regionally significant projects. So that would be my comments there, is that we will, I'll get an email out this week, and let's pick a date in the next week or two for a Renew or local option sales tax work session.
Questions from the commission here today on the Renew local option sales tax work?
Well, a decision would have to be made at a regular meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Just be sure I'm on the right
Thanks for the
track.
reminder.
Are we having another work session on that? This commission work session, you mentioned
Yeah.
trying to get another one going.
Yeah, I just feel like we're gonna need to, given, our agenda today doesn't accommodate a whole lot of time to, again, revisit the list of potential projects and how we can sort through and prioritize from the 1 through 8 list of what are the top 2 and how do we get to the top 2, and then how do we best support on a department leadership on drafting the proposals for consideration. I think our collective input and perspectives could be valuable to that process.
And Chair Fryer, I think if we were if we would need another regular meeting in order to make a decision, I think we could have another regular meeting. We could just schedule a regular meeting to make a decision. So.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions on the sales tax reauthorization? Okay. Be watching for email. We'll schedule another work session to discuss, and then to the point made by Ruth Ann would be we could either wait until our December meeting. We'll probably wait till our December meeting, but whether we add another meeting in January probably would be the question. If
Or
we
one
need-
in between.
Or one in between, yeah. Great. Thanks, everyone. Item number 7 under old business, Harmon Park parking lot concepts. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. We have discussed and thought about this and looked at this for a couple of months now. And again, the Harmon Park parking lot concepts would be just a matter of authorizing staff to prepare construction documents. Not necessarily commit to spending the money and doing it in 2016, but moving towards design plans for what we've laid out as a few options here. You know, either simply creating an off-street drop-off area and turnaround area at the Harmon Park shelter, or actually creating a parking lot, maximizing the number of stalls. You know, there's the option of eliminating the existing gravel parking lot and installing grass, which may not necessarily be recommended because it might be important to drop off materials and supplies for renters of the shelter, or simply to leave it as is, as the gravel parking lot it is now, and make no plans to move forward at this point. So you've seen the information, the overview for a couple of months, and just wondering if the commission wishes us to move forward with designs.
Chair Fryer, I think it's important that there be a ability for children to be dropped off not on the street and crossing the street in that busy area, and that they be able to drive in and drop them off right in the park, and that but there not be more traffic within that area by maximizing the parking stalls. So I think there should be the drop-off and handicap parking recommendation A, and I would move that we recommend to the council recommendation number A.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend pursuing concept 1, a drop-off and handicap parking only. Any more discussion?
Yes. I wish we hadn't had that motion yet, but I've got a question as to how this came up. Have there been accidents or a need for something? You mentioned it's gonna cost $100,000. Why are we doing this now?
Commissioner Bourne, Chair Fryer and Commissioners, there's no need to do anything at this point in time, but we have an opportunity to sort of finish the shelter area if we decide that we want to, have sidewalks up to the shelter and curb and gutter, storm sewer, and actually pave something in that area. Either similar to kind of what it's at now as kind of a parking lot, or some sort of a design option for simply a drop-off area.
But the impetus for doing it now, do you have the extra 100,000 laying around that you don't know what to do with?
Well, I think that funding that is within the realm of our department and our fund. Whether we do it in 2016 or 2017, we can wait and see. But it's a park, and if that's an element that we want to move forward in the not too distant future, the next step would be preliminary design, drawings.
Well, that is the option that I would be in favor of also. But I don't see any problem at this point with leaving it for a while. It seems like we've got a lot of other stuff coming up that there's money being requested for. That was
Mr.
just my
Chair.
comment.
Yeah.
Chair, just a question for the Park and Rec Director. Now, right now, we're going, the motion, as I understand, the second, is to go ahead and get the design together, get the specs and all the rest of that, not necessarily go to go through it. Is that right?
Correct. To prepare and move towards finalizing the design specifications. Not to go out to bid or advertise for bids, but to at least spend some time this winter formalizing and finalizing the design.
And to make a decision that this is what we're going to do. When we decide that this is a priority, then this is what we're going to do.
Yes, there would be action in the future to prepare the bid package and actually advertise and solicit for bids once you've decided that it's a priority and that we have funding available for the project. So this does not commit us to spending the money or doing the project, but it, you know, projects take time to set up, design, and manage and prepare for. And that's the next logical step with this element of this one park to again set up what we feel we want to develop down the road.
And just one other question. Do you have a preliminary cost for what this design, is it in my materials and I didn't see it?
It's estimated in the vicinity of $100,000.
No, not completing the project, for just the design aspect of it.
Yeah, my estimate for that would be less than $5,000.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to know. We got a motion and a second, and it's essentially to spend the $5,000 necessary to get the design specifications together to create within this space a circular drop-off for children, and also a 1 or 2 handicap parking spots.
Correct.
And it would also give people the ability to stop and bring their food and hot dogs and whatever it is they're having for the birthday party.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, good discussion, thank you, and that adds a little bit probably to the previous motion. It's not only, recommending concept 1, but in terms of development of concept 1, not approval of the actual bidding of it at this point. But, you know, I would agree with Commissioner Bourne here of, some of these are even hard for me of, it seems like it would be the concept I would also agree with for this proposal, but it's how do you compare this compared to the 10 other priorities for the Park and Rec budget, and that's kind of the challenge we have of 100,000 here or 100,000 in a different area, and what's going to maximize the impact for those that we're here to serve. So we'll have more discussion on that once we get closer to reviewing the final proposal and drawing. So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. On to new business this evening.
Excuse me, could I go on old business yet?
Okay.
We have somebody here from Goosetown, and I talked to him earlier, has a question about the progress of the Goosetown South Park project. Is there an update on that?
Commissioner Bourne, Chair Fryer, and Commissioners, not a significant update on the South Goosetown Park area. It's something that we're still looking at, and there's going to be a decision for the commission in the future, and it continues to be a topic for our work sessions.
Okay.
And just one other question. Now, I think we were clear last time that our work sessions are also open meetings. So, all right, thank you.
Correct. Okay, on to item number 8 under new business, donations.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. I'll read into the record 4 donations that are being offered to the city this month through the Park and Recreation System. The first one is a $100,000 anonymous cash pledge towards the Outdoor Performing Arts Center Amphitheater Replacement Project in German Park. And the details surrounding this, I'll go through the overview at the same time. I think you may recall that we've had 2 cash donations placed in the account, the specific account that money cannot be spent out of except for this project. And that's a $10,000 cash donation and a $25,000 cash donation for a grand total of $35,000 in our bank account. We also have in the preliminary 2016 budget a match of that $35,000 coming out of the Park and Rec Fund. We do also have an initial verbal offer from American Art Stone of New Ulm of $30,000 to $40,000 of product if their product is used in that project. So this offer of $100,000 would require that the city match that $100,000 out of the Park and Rec Fund and place it into that account in the future. So that would be a grand total of $135,000 to match the private offer of a similar amount to go into the cash account for that future development replacement project. Well, you've seen the preliminary concept that was created a few years ago with a preliminary cost estimate of $400,000 to $500,000. Our fund balance at the end of this past year was $1.7 million. That's our savings account at the Park and Rec Department. And the preliminary budget then, if we include this additional $100,000 to match the private donation, would see $662,000 coming out of our fund balance for a number of projects that we have put forth in 2016. So that's some information and background on that offer. I can move on to the second one, and that is a $20,000 cash donation from the Herman Monument Society Ruth Berndt Estate for Herman Heights Park to move towards an accessible walkway around the exterior of the monument fence. Something that's been in the plan for quite some time. If you go up to the monument when the monument's closed, or you don't want to pay to go in the fence, you can walk around the fence in the monument for free during normal park hours. The third donation offered to the city is for Nels Park, improvements at the ball field in Nels Park. And that's at least $9,263.88 cash from the Daniel and Amanda Vetter family and friends. If we agree to accept that, we would allow to put up a small sign on the backstop of that ball field honoring Josiah and naming that small neighborhood ball field Josiah Field. The fourth donation offered to the city is $200 cash from Citizens Bank for the annual Skate with Santa sponsorship at the New Ulm Civic Center, which is scheduled for Sunday afternoon, December 6th. So a grand total of $129,463.88 in cash and pledges are offered to the city this month through the Park and Recreation System. I recommend you move that forward onto the City Council for their formal acceptance.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second to recommend the City Council accept the following donations that Director Schmidt just outlined. Any more discussion?
You go ahead.
Okay. Director Schmitz, just a question for clarification. With the preliminary budget denoting $662,000, did I understand correctly that that includes the $100,000 if this proposal goes through?
Yes.
It does include that? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And, Mr. Chair, again, perhaps I should know this, but would Would you explain the significance of Josiah's Field? You know, perhaps I should know that, but I don't.
Certainly. Josiah passed away at birth recently.
Okay, so it's to honor this child.
Yes.
All right. I just want to make sure that there's nothing, you know, that if anyone would question this, that there.
Yes.
It's perfectly understandable and very appropriate.
Is there a city policy on how and when you name something?
If there is, I'm not sure about it. I'd have to talk to the city attorney about that. I think that's something that is going to come up.
I think that should be looked into, because there could be
Right, but
a lot of frivolous things,
I understand.
reason for
I
it.
understand, which is why I thought it was important for this group to understand what the situation is, and.
Yes, my understanding is that the city council has the authority to make those decisions, and they normally request information from the unappropriate commission. And so the city council will be asked about this action at their next meeting a week from tomorrow, and I'm sure they'll be interested in what the Park and Rec Commission.
Well, and so I think, you know, perhaps it is something that we should discuss. Is this a field that's often used by children? Like I said, I don't want to just assume that I know what the situation is without talking about it. Am I correct that this is a small ball field that's often used by young children? You know, as
Yes.
opposed to Johnson Park, which is used by.
Correct,
Yeah,
yes. This
right.
is a small neighborhood facility. I mean, it's a neighborhood park, and it's a small facility in the park. And my recommendation would be to move forward with this modest request of the family and accept the donation to assist in paying for an upgrade to that field.
Is this donation contingent on the naming? I don't want to get into the details of this particular, why they're doing it, but we'd be establishing a precedent if the city council then says, well, we're not going to name this particular whatever it is, then the donation doesn't come. I mean, if they say, okay, we'll take the donation, but we're not going to give it that name.
I think that's for the county city attorney to look into.
Yeah, and that decision would be made by the family also. And, good question.
I know what
it's-
they're going through. We went through the same thing, and I've got the sympathy for the situation.
Well, it's
Is
interesting.
the field in its current condition, is it used for any programming? Or is it?
Yes, but it's in need of an upgrade, and we've actually began that upgrade with City Forces. And so if this donation comes in, it'll be able to offset
Okay.
the costs in that upgrade.
To know.
Well, and it's interesting because this is a named park too. This isn't North Park or South Park. This is Nails Park after
Yes.
the Nails family that owned it. So it's got a lot of things that sort of fit together.
And with item number 1 on German Park, I guess I'm sensing just with the last discussion on the Harmon Park and others, I mean, it just feels like at some point probably would benefit from kind of a non-standard business agenda and be able to spend some time in more strategic planning and being able to prioritize things kind of for the year so we can get on the same page of what
Right.
are the 5 highest priorities
Right.
and how does our budget reflect that. Because I think sometimes all of us are looking at these and wanting to support and wanting to fund, but not understanding how they'll impact other needs that come up in our budget. Is that
Well,
a fair assessment?
that's well, and you know, I mean, it's and people who donate are sort of voting with their pocketbook. You know, they're making it clear that this is a priority for them, and so we'll see.
But on the other hand, they shouldn't be able to buy their way I mean, if Joe's Pub wants to put something in German Park and give a donation in the extreme.
Okay, good discussion. We still have a motion and a second to recommend the city council accept the following donations. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to item number 9, Kiesling House Grant Application. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. This proposed action is to recommend that the City Council authorize a grant application to the Carl and Verna Schmidt Foundation for up to $9,000 to fund interpretive items for the Kiesling House. I think we're all quite familiar with the building, historic building, dates back to the 1860s. The city recently authorized a lease agreement to Kathleen Backer for public interpretive programs. Programming will begin in 2016. Interpretive programs and decor will be somewhat modeled after the Harkin Store interpretive and historic model and other similar properties. Let's see here, I'll move down in the overview. This grant application would be for procurement of 1860s to 1880s period items as described in the attached letter. So you have the letter from Kathleen Backer dated October 30th with some verbiage and examples of these interpretive items that would go into the house and become property of the city, is my understanding. I know Kathleen is here today if you have any questions for her. And then a black and white photo of some of the historic items.
Chair Fryer, I would like to get some sense of the artistic approach that's being taken by Ms. Backer and her other group, as far as sort of in more detail what they're thinking about, not to make a commitment to a pickle factory or something, pickle making, sauerkraut cutting or something, but just some idea of what she's thinking about.
Great, yeah. Thanks for joining us today, Kathleen. If you could introduce yourself for the record.
Kathleen Backer. Do you need information?
Address.
Address?
Yeah.
907 15th Street South, New Ulm, Minnesota.
Oh, I just want you to just celebrate the ideas that you're talking about, so we get some idea.
We have several different formats of program that we are intending to provide. The one that will probably garner the most attention will be weekend highlight programming, much like the model at Harkin Store that we started back in the 80s. And as an example, think of opening the Harkin Store in May with Mushroom Mania. And we have a story that has been written by a local individual about Maury the mushroom. We want to do poster competition that goes along with that, and face painting as well as interpretation. And that effort is to basically celebrate our German heritage and the morel mushroom hunting. That's just a type of activity that you'll see on weekends. The ongoing programming will be historic interpretation. Dan Hoisington is working on a 15-minute video presentation that will be available to visitors to the Kiesling site. The items that we are requesting the grant for are items that would be left with the house, property of the house. Certainly we're not going to interpret it totally period, like a snapshot of the history, because according to the National Parks Service, that costs $225 per square foot. And that would be, that's cost prohibitive for what we believe we can accomplish with programming. So we're looking at artifacts or items that can help us tell the story. And so that's some in summary. We also are connecting with schools so that we can provide school tours in the spring and the fall at that site. We want it to come alive in every aspect.
So you're looking for common household things.
Yes, we're looking at items, as I mentioned in the letter, that would be a prop and not an entire setting at a snapshot and period of the house, but rather, as an example, a spinning wheel, so that we can talk about the craft of the daily chore of making clothes, basically, and other items that will provide an opportunity for us to use them as props to tell the story.
When you get donations like that, what do they become the property of? You're the leaseholder, but is it going to be given to the city?
Yes,
part of
those
the
those
Kiesling House?
those items will be purchased. The grant will be run through the city, and those items will become property of the city. We'll provide the city with a comprehensive inventory of what's there, what's the property of the city versus what, we'll bring in items like computers and desks and whatever we need that obviously we can take with us if we would vacate the lease, but the other items would be typical of a house of that era and stay with the house.
Will you be charging any admission fee?
Our hope is, once we have programs that would deem a charge, that we could charge so that we can offset the costs of the programming with those fees. It certainly won't be a moneymaker, but we do want it to help pay for itself.
I was just thinking of the fees that would go toward buying more artifacts or whatever.
Yes, yes, and that's the hope. We're looking over 2 to 3 years to have our programming in place and paid for, but initially want to start out with some simpler formats.
Okay, any other questions?
Could you give us some background? I haven't heard of the Carl and Verna Schmidt Foundation before, and just a little background of what this foundation is, and obviously they will have an interest in, or we wouldn't be making this application, but who are they?
You know, I'm not in a position to tell you specifically who they are. I'm working with Darla Gebhardt and Dan Hoisington, who have identified that foundation as a very viable granting partner for the city in the past on many, many projects. The museum has used them. I know the city has used them in the past for other projects, but I'm sorry that I can't give you that information.
Well, that provides the kind of background I was looking for.
Okay.
I'm a little bit familiar with them in acquiring property with the Department of Natural Resources. They lived over near, I believe it was Le Sueur, in that area. But they started off in mink farming and have been giving donations to a lot of things for a lot of years. My contact with Carl was back in, probably 20, 25 years ago. I believe they're both passed away now.
Thank
Good-
you.
Good people.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Yes.
Okay, so we're looking to
Do we have a motion?
take action on this. We don't have a motion yet.
I'll move that we recommend to the city council that they authorize the grant application as set out to fund interpretive items for the Kiesling House.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen. Item number 10, new business, bike routes. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. This proposed action will also be going through the Safety Commission, and that is to approve and recommend that the City Council authorize designating more bicycle routes such as those proposed on the attached map in your packet. February of 2012, the City Council unanimously designated our bike circle route and allowing it to be signed. Some of that route is on the paved trail and other parts are on streets. A bicycle route can simply be a designation on a piece of paper or on a map. It can also be signed and/or it can be striped as a lane on a road and/or designated by other markings on the road such as painted sharrows on the pavement. A route could also be a trail, or a combination of one or more of those items that I've just stated. The Walkable Living Communities Institute report, prepared for New Ulm in 2013, recommended more connectivity intra and throughout the community as far as bicycle routes, especially providing access to schools, medical centers, civic assets, recreational facilities, and the downtown area through designated bicycle routes. The New Ulm Bike Group has spent several months, I'd say probably a year, determining which streets would be appropriate to include in our bicycle route system and meet some of the criteria set forth in the report I just mentioned. The city engineer and his staff have reviewed the proposed map and routes and concur that they are acceptable and appropriate routes. The Safety Commission will be looking at this proposal, I think Thursday of this week at their regular meeting. The Heart of New Ulm leadership team has decided to dedicate a portion of the Lose It to Win It community prize that was earned by the community to spend money on this proposed project of designating bicycle routes. That money has been previously accepted by the city. You may recall that. I think it's, yeah, there it is, $10,785. So you have the proposed routes on the attached map, leading New Ulm east and west and New Ulm north and south.
Mr. Chair, I would like to hear the theories behind these particular routes. Again, I think I can guess that they go from park to park and places like Hy-Vee and up to the new high school and that sort of thing, but I'd like to hear what the, overall theory is as far as, why designate these particular streets as bicycle routes.
Okay, so we have someone here to,
I knew somebody was
Sure.
here, be ready.
if you'll share your name and address for the record, please.
Cindy Winters, and I'm with the Heart of New Ulm Project, 1324 5th North, New Ulm. So the designated bike routes came out about as a result of the walk report, and the overall thought process is that we need to start really thinking about bicycling as a form of transportation and not just a form of recreation. There are people in New Ulm that prefer to bike to their locations and to provide them with safer routes. So when the bike group looked at the designated or different streets to use, we used the lower traffic streets and also streets that went past the locations of the hospital, all of the schools. The larger businesses got as close to the grocery stores as we could to provide people access to more places in New Ulm rather than always having to use their car as a form of transportation. And the walk report initially had some bike routes in it, and the bike group looked at it and decided to change some of those routes according to the amount of traffic and visibility on those streets. The people in the bike group that help participate are avid bikers, and they bike a lot in the community, and so they know which streets have traffic on them and which have a better sight line for safety issues as well. And this will also be used, so it's not just for people that want to bike as a form of transportation, but it'll also ultimately be used as a part of the Safe Routes to School program for kids to bike to school as well.
Okay. Other
Before-
questions or discussion? Yeah.
Before we get a motion, I'd like to address this. This is pretty intensive, the map that's put out. And it's gonna impact a lot of things if it is striped or hashed or whatever you wanna call it. And it's something that I don't think we're ready to vote on. I think the public should have some input on this. Let them see what's happening and let them respond. I would be willing to hear all the other ideas on it, but I think it should be postponed until the next meeting for actual voting on it.
Related to Commissioner Bourne's observation, I was wondering, could you get some information on which routes would be implemented initially, or how this would take place? Because certainly this wouldn't all be done at once, but
They
so
wouldn't,
to kind of address that part of Commissioner Bourne's question, could you
right.
elaborate on that?
So the Caches Coalition, the Coalition for Active, Safe, and Healthy Streets has also looked at this, and that's a coalition of 17 key decision makers throughout the community, as well as the city engineers sit on that coalition as well. And we've talked about some of the streets are wide enough that they could be striped for an additional bike lane. An example of that is Garden Street. It would continue the bike lane from Center Street up to North 5th Street, and then after that they would probably be sharrows, which sharrows are just a marking on the road that shows or indicates to individuals to expect to see bicyclists along the street as well. So you're going to share the road with the bicyclists, or there could potentially be signs along the route. We don't anticipate losing any parking along any of the routes. We have talked about it with a variety of different shareholders. The Heart of New Ulm Project did a survey this summer, and we found, of the results, the people that participated, over 472 people, 33% of them said that more of them would use biking as a form of transportation if there were more bike lanes or safe routes to ride bike in the community.
I just want to stop for just a moment on the issue of sharrows. I've just been coming from Mankato, and I came down Second, turned on Cherry, and then turned on Front Street, headed toward the yoga studio. And the sharrow is, I would describe it as, it's a white, it looks like a painted white bicycle with 2 arrows in front of it, indicating, slow down, there's, be careful here, because this is a place where you can expect to see bicycles. And I believe from the information that I've just gathered from listening to the city engineer talk and safe routes to school and those sorts of things, one of the things that these sharrows and heavily striped bike routes and things like that are intended to do is to put drivers on high alert, so that rather than just happily tooling down Garden Street, you're going, wait a minute, I've got to be careful here. This is something I've got to pay attention to. And sometimes you call them traffic calming
measures.
Traffic calming measures. There's just something about seeing those white lines and seeing the streets narrowed that tells your almost unconsciously to slow down, rather than go 38 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. You just find yourself naturally, because you're nervous about it, going 28, or you're just going slower.
However, when there is a bike lane, I'm under the belief that the cars can't go into that.
That the cars are not to go into that.
And that creates a problem. Just remembering all of the negative responses on the survey, the negative written responses.
And we've talked about this before.
If we do this through the whole city, we're going to get a lot of feedback.
The lanes
Nice.
along the bike lane are the minimum amount required by the state aid. So, which is 11 feet. And so they meet the minimum requirement for state DOT.
Well, and I guess one of the reasons that I was talking about sharrows putting people on high alert is that, and I've talked directly to people about their initial negative reaction to the striping on Garden Street, talked to people one-on-one. And it's their belief, well, this is, you know, I have to slow down. I have to slow down on Garden Street. It takes me longer to get to my yoga class. I see bicycles there. I'm worried about bicycles there. Well, I guess, you know, what I have come to believe is that that's the whole point. That's the whole point, to make people who are in automobiles just a little bit more less at ease with driving real fast down an open lane, because there are children there. There are bicycles there. So, but getting back to the point here, the proposed street and bike route, would it be appropriate for us to, we love driving in the van, would it be appropriate for us to either take a virtual tour of these streets, you know, by going on Google Map, or at one of our work sessions, or something like that, so we can be part of, you know, part of the understanding of why these streets, like I said, I look at it and I say, oh yeah, it takes you to Craft. You know, if I worked at Craft, I could more safely bike to Craft, because this would be a bike route, and there'd be an arrow there, and my fellow workers would be slowing down because they would be aware that this is a street that is going to be used by bicycles. So, I mean, is there some? I guess I'm just asking, just generally, whether as a Park and Rec Commission, before it goes to the Safety Commission, of course, it's their job too. But if we could have see a little larger scale of what's being proposed and why it's being proposed, and why it's before us the way it is.
Well, I still think we should postpone it for the next meeting to actually vote on it, just because I think more input is needed. We can't come to one meeting and have something like this sprung on us with no more information in our own background. I know we've got, 4 people on this commission that are bicycle group people. To me, that's kind of a conflict of interest if we don't delve into it more.
I was proposing that between now and when we meet again, that we, in a formal way, investigate this. I was agreeing with you that we should be real clear, that everyone who votes should be clear on what the plan is. Now, perhaps each of us will have the opportunity between now and our next meeting to follow these routes. Maybe that's an easier way. But we could also look at it in more of a virtual sense as a group. I don't know if you've been on Google Maps, but essentially you can go on your computer, download, you know that, of course, and we could ride our bicycle through virtually. But I concur that we should have a more concrete sense of why these routes are being proposed.
Okay, and just for my clarification on the process, is this something, Director Schmitz, that you see as, is it coming here as an information item, or actually would need approval of this body, or is the City Council going to take this up, whether the Park and Rec reviews this in the next month or doesn't? Are you aware?
I think it has to go through this body and the Safety Council for recommendations before the City Council will act on it. Am I right?
I'm just wondering, you know.
Yeah,
if we're
Chair,
talking
Fire,
about
and
the streets
Commissioners,
and,
my understanding is it's certainly a City Council decision, and that the various commissions simply offer their opinions and recommendations. And I don't know the exact timeline of when it's going to go to City Council. That's probably up to the city engineer. This is probably more of an engineering department,
right, that's what
council action.
Oh, and striping is done. The last thing we're done striping for the year.
Right. It's just to help the city plan for if there are any streets being redone that are on the route
Okay.
next year,
Okay,
that they can put it in with the
In.
bid, because then it's cheaper for the city to do it that way, to build it into the bid rather than trying to retrofit. That's why we're trying to be proactive to get it done so that the city can build it into their planning for next year.
well, and, I just, if you don't mind my saying, you should know that, because of the local option sales tax issue, we've been piling on work sessions, we've been doing an awful lot of that sort of thing, so, just so that you know.
So is there interest to, I know I'm hearing differing views here, but I guess is there interest in taking action this afternoon?
I would make a motion that we postpone any action until the next meeting.
Hearing no second, that motion will
I move that we add
pass.
a brief explanation or, some sort of additional information onto the agenda of our next work session. So that we have a formal way of looking at this.
Does that mean we're not voting on anything?
That's my motion.
Meeting?
That's
Okay.
my motion, is that we investigate this at our next work session.
Okay, and postpone it until then.
Okay, so I'm hearing
Do I have a second? That was my motion.
hearing a motion of postponing action today until we are able to discuss this further at a work session.
Right.
I second that.
Second.
We have 2 seconds for that one. Any more discussion?
Third.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Thank you.
Item number 11, CCMR lease. Thank you, Cindy Winters.
Thank you,
Director
Chair
Schmitz.
Fryer and Commissioners. This next proposed action is to recommend that the City Council authorize renewing the lease agreement for another 5 years with the Coalition for a Clean Minnesota River, CCMR, for use of the interior of the Riverside Park building. The former Franklin School Riverside Park building, CCMR has been in there for now 10 years. And I'm not aware of any problems or concerns. Their use of the building includes a open to the public River History and Information Center. They also conduct some river history and research. They offer various water-related programs and river valley programs. It's their office and meeting space. And they also have interpretive displays and artifacts on the southern portion of the building, kind of like a natural history museum. I have no concerns related to reauthorizing this lease agreement. They've been a good tenant. No other potential tenants have come forth. CCMR pays the utilities on the building, and actually all the utilities in the park go through the building, so we could actually say they're paying park utilities, including lighting Gertie the Goose and the basketball court and so on. We can always cancel the lease with a 1-year written notice. You see their website listed there on the action. They have to provide the city a copy of their valid insurance coverage and adhere to any and all state, county, and federal licenses or permits that would affect them. Your options are to recommend renewing it, to propose a revision to the attached proposed lease, or to say, no, let's not renew it, and Park and Rec takes it over and pays utilities.
Have they been paying their bills?
They have been,
Okay.
yes. They're also responsible for all the interior custodial services in keeping the interior of the building clean.
Okay,
I move that we reauthorize the lease.
Second the motion.
okay, we have a motion and a second to renew the lease agreement for another 5 years. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And item number 12, Pollinator Park Plan. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. This proposed action is to approve the initial and partial pollinator park development plan. Recently, the Commission and the City Council approved designating a portion of 2250 North Broadway Park as a natural area and moved towards managing it as a pollinator preserve, especially for monarch butterflies and other pollinator species. Local resident Deb Steinberg, who's here in the audience with us today, is the lead volunteer on this park area. It will also be used as an outdoor environmental education classroom. Deb has recently been awarded some private funding through Pheasants Forever State organization, is my understanding, for some programming and potential development of some native species. As you see the area, there's turf grass. There's a mowed turf grass area along Broadway. And then further towards the river, New Ulm East, is some of our urban wilderness. Kind of a prairie savanna area that is now being encroached by invasive and exotic species, including sumac and a variety of different woody vegetation. The turf grass area will be partially transformed into native planting patches and pathways with interpretive signage and benches and so on. Volunteers will be utilized in this installation and maintenance of the area, and they have had consultation from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources on this development and management plan. So you have along with you in the packet and also on the television screen an aerial photo of this area and a colored pencil sketch of the proposed development with some of the different vegetative species proposed. And then some photographs of these different types of plantings that have taken place elsewhere.
Mr. President, or
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
Oh, this is a hand-drawn, for those of you that are watching on TV, it's a lovely hand-drawn plan. It's not the usual engineering, parks and specs sort of thing, but I just assume that, where it says flowers, that you mean native flowering species, so.
That's my understanding. I don't know if Deb's
Cheer.
interested in coming to the podium.
You have a
We wanna
bee hotel?
celebrate.
Yes, if you'll introduce yourself, name and address for the record, please, Deb.
Deb Steinberg. I live at 6 Park Lane in New Ulm, Minnesota.
Thank you. Yeah, any questions for Deb?
Oh, just tell us how wonderful it's going to be. Can you tell us how wonderful it's going to be?
Actually, we've already utilized the park a few times. I am with preschoolers here in New Ulm, and we had a bison stomp where we would were doing a practice stomping seeds in the ground like the bison did years ago. And we plan on having another field trip in the winter so the preschoolers can see what the terrain looks like in the winter. And then also in the spring, we will have another field trip, and hopefully we'll incorporate more of the city, that they can come out. We'll have some volunteers, and we will have some information on how you can make your own pollinator park or pollinator garden in your yard. So,
Great. Thank you.
had-
Yeah, I think I saw the picture on the front page of the paper
yes.
when the kids were out
Yes.
there.
It's also in your packet.
You had little kids out there stomping the seeds into the ground?
Yes.
I bet
I
that was
had
cute.
40 preschoolers, 3, 4, and 5 years old.
Oh.
So, what a wonderful way to learn about nature and pollinators and get them outdoors instead of working on television and
Screen.
games.
Do you have a plan for how to purchase the various grasses and shrubs and
I
flowers?
already have a plan for the plugs, the native plant plugs, and also pollinator seed mix,
Okay.
which will be purchased with the grant money.
Do you take, if we have like a milkweed plant, do you want the seeds? Or
Sure.
do you have your
I,
other
I
sources?
even thought that it would be good to partner with the Putting Green people, and maybe we can have a weekend where we can have informational time, and then maybe say free milkweed seeds if you come and visit our newest park in Putting Green, and get more information out.
All right.
I asked that question because we have a volunteer milkweed that came up between cracks in the concrete, and we don't have any anywhere. I don't know how
Interesting.
it got there. A little bird, I suppose.
Sure.
Brought it over. All right, thanks so much, Deb.
Sure.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, so we'd be looking for support this afternoon to approve this development plan.
I move we approve that.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second to approve the initial Pollinator Park Development Plan. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 13. Hey, this might be a record for us. 13
my
or 14
gosh.
items. Little free libraries. All right, Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. This is a proposed action that I'm asking you to approve, placing approximately 4 little free libraries in park areas. The New Ulm Public Library secured a United Way Venture grant to fund the Free Little Library project. This project would add between 4 and 8 free little libraries around the city of New Ulm. Project leaders would like to have up to 3 or 4 of them located in various park areas throughout the city, so that all ages and abilities will be able to have access to them. They will be built as part of an Eagle Scout project and installed by volunteers with the location approved by the city. Installation is projected to take place in the spring of 2016, this next spring. So you have a photo depicting one of those. I know we have a few of them in the community already in some private areas. Basically kind of a mailbox type setup with a free book exchange. And I would recommend that you authorize the city to move forward with them to place some in a few park areas.
Do you have any history on other parks that have these other towns? Is there any vandalism or
I know that
self-policing or what?
Commissioner Bourne and Commissioners, I do know that this is happening elsewhere throughout the country, including in Minnesota, that there's a number of municipalities that have allowed this and do have these small free little libraries in park areas and some trail areas also.
If there's any maintenance that would need to be done, who would be looking into that or responsible for it or following through on that?
My understanding is that the library would be in charge of maintenance.
Are they aware of that?
Yes, it's their project,
Okay.
it's their program.
Okay.
Just looking for a home.
Yes,
In our
a
parks.
tiny little bit of real estate in some of our public
And
municipal parks.
Park and Rec has the real estate.
I move adoption.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve placing of the little free libraries in our park areas. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Neat project. I like it. German Park parking lot. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. This proposed action is in German Park, and it's to approve reducing the berm slope area between the parking lot and the eastern portion of the park by shaving it off and then seeding the area with grass. So this slope area, as you probably are familiar with, used to have some lilacs on it, and those lilac bushes got old and died. And it's an area that needs some sort of a plan for improvement. That area is an accessibility barrier. There's only real one accessible, or one way to get from the parking lot up into the park, and that's a staircase in the center of the area. So it's an accessibility barrier to the park. It's also a visual barrier where it's lower in elevation to the regular park, the main park area. The park and it's a use barrier to the park also. You would have to climb over this mound area unless you went to the central location and were able to climb the staircase. It's a safety concern because it's kind of a cliff, a small cliff that needs some sort of change. It's a maintenance concern. It's vegetatively degraded. It's an unnecessary berm area. And the engineering department has viewed this area and concurs with the proposed project. Another more costly and maintenance-intensive area option for you to consider would be to reestablish vegetation in that area, including trees or shrubs, and/or to construct a retaining wall system. Very expensive, and again, you know, not easy to walk from the parking lot up into the park. So there are a number of alternatives for you to consider, and I would recommend that we eliminate and shave off this berm area so that people can walk from the parking lot up into the park and anywhere along that length of parking lot. You have 8 photographs of the area in your packet, and I would recommend that you approve moving forward with this project.
Is there a problem right now with people climbing up through there? I mean, you do have the stairs, and it's really only to access the parking lot, correct?
It's to allow people to move freely between the parking lot and the bicycle trail. The recreational trail is down in that area. There's also, you know, public road between 3rd North and 2nd North in that vicinity, an alley. And so, you know, I view it as a visual concern, but also a safety concern where people walking through that, it would be easy to trip and fall on the roots and the remains of that slope.
The stairway kind of establishes a future slope. Are you going to try to follow that, or and will any trees be affected?
We would make that slope, I think it's approximately a 3% slope that we would be looking at. And there may be, there's one tree to the south edge, a degraded hackberry, and then there's one tree to the north edge, a maple, that have the potential of being affected with this change.
That's what I'd hate to see.
Director Schmitz, do you have an estimated cost for the project?
We have had 2 proposals for the project, and both of them are in the $10,000 to $20,000 range, actually. And we also have the possibility of using city forces on this project and not hiring a contractor.
Have you, rather than lose a tree, have you looked at what MLC has done? They've got some pretty steep hills there.
You mean the retaining wall systems?
Well, they had shrubbery planted up.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to mow it, then they put the shrubbery in. I don't know if, seems to me I've seen somebody trying to mow it again. But I would rather see something permanent as far as shrubbery to hold the hillside than to shave it off to the extent where you lose a tree.
Well, we could make sure that the trees are not affected or removed. And my recommendation would be that our lawn mowers can handle this, and it's turf grass, and you can walk and freely see the park from the parking lot. And you-
Mr.
But
Chair, that-
shrubbery's nice.
That was when, this is my ward, and this is, I spend a lot of time here. One of the concerns is that because of the, just because of the, I'm not sure, it's not really the height, that's the wrong word, but just because of the
Slope.
way it's laid out, if a person who parks her bicycle or her car on the New Ulm north side of that parking lot, you can't see it. Or if there are kids playing there, or something going on that side of the parking lot, you can't see it. And so my concern with this is more to improve the safety and security of that side of the parking lot, because especially during the concert season, the summer concert season, there's all sorts of people that are parking there, and people are all over the park. It's the sight lines that I'm more concerned about. And so I think that reducing the slope makes a lot of sense, especially if the engineer's involved. I'd rather spend money on, for example, improving our first item, paving Harmon Park, as opposed to putting up a retaining wall, which doesn't solve the site problems. Keeping that height with an expensive retaining wall just continues the problem of not being able to see into that parking lot. So I'm in favor of reducing the berm slope area.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say that I was in favor of a retaining wall. Just to be clear, I would rather see a hillside of spirea bushes or something like that. The sight line, it's a lot lower. You're not going to see into the park. And looking the other way from the park, you're looking at industrial area.
Okay, so we're having some discussion. Are anyone interested in taking action on this tonight?
I'll move that we approve reducing the berm slope area between the parking lot and the eastern portion of the park, and seed it with grass.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Reports, Director Schmitz, anything else to add tonight?
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. I'm not going to read through the list that's in the agenda packet of the completed projects and the ones that are in progress or planning phases. That information is all there for you and the world to see. A couple of announcements I want to make, though, for sure, include the fact that next month we need to elect officers for the 2016 calendar year of the Commission. Presently, Chair Fryer and Vice Chair Secretary Prochnick are our two officers. And my understanding is that Chair Fryer is his first term of three-year term is expiring at the end of this year, eligible to be reappointed for another three-year term.
Really?
And then Mr. Vorwerk is serving a partial term, and so he certainly will be eligible for reinstatement for a full term next year. So think about that, be prepared for that. So we'll take action and vote on our officers for next year at our December meeting. And then I want to double check on the tour that we had initially scheduled for the Lake Crystal Recreation Center and Aquatic Center tomorrow. My understanding is that I'm showing that we have 5 of 8 commissioners who seem to be available to depart town from the Recreation Center at 4. So I would recommend that we maybe go ahead and plan for that. So make sure that's on your calendars, and I will email a reminder out tomorrow morning. But let's plan to leave the rec center at 4.
Great.
So please get to the recreation center by 3:55 tomorrow, and I'll have the van running and warmed up.
Right.
Thank you.
All right.
That's all I have for reports and announcements.
Any commissioner reports? Next meeting, December 14th. As indicated, be watching email for work sessions, and for some of you, we'll see you tomorrow afternoon. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.